Alpha Jacob gave me the grandest bonding ceremony 5 years ago. I became the world's most envied woman. 5 years later, I received a provocative voice message from Jacob's first love, Molly. I just got back to the pack, and all I needed to do was to play coy with Jacob, and he came right over. Tonight, he originally prepared blue fireworks for me. I don't like blue, but I decided to give it to you since I never liked to waste. You can use it during your anniversary. The day during our 5th mate bond anniversary, I looked at the blue fireworks blooming in the night sky, quietly waiting in my seat as I faced the empty seat opposite me. Molly's provocation came again. A photo of her having a candlelight dinner with Jacob. I didn't cry, and simply submit the application to terminate my mate bond with Jacob to the Pack's Elder Council. At this time, my personal assistant told me she saw someone had applied for a grand bonding ceremony. Luna Cynthia, the bonding ceremony is prepared by Molly for herself and Alpha Jacob. It will take place 7 days later. Do you wish to stop it? There's no need to. If this is what Jacob wants, I'll make their wish come true. Jacob was still promoting how deep his love for me was, saying that I was the woman he loved the most in his life. But he didn't know that 7 days later, I would leave the pack and never return again. That night, he collapsed. Chapter 1. Luna Cynthia, here's the mate bond termination request form from the safe. I took the form and thanked my personal assistant, Mia. On the day the Black Flame Pack's Alpha Jacob and I bonded as mates 5 years ago, he had already prepared this form. The form had already been signed with Jacob's name. That was because he had sworn to love only me. If he ever betrayed me, then I could file for a mate bond termination at any time. This form was once the proof of his loyalty. I never imagined I had to take it out again. Especially not on our 5th mate bond anniversary. I quickly signed my name, eyes looking at his empty seat across me with sorrow and exhaustion. My wolf sobbed within me. No, I saw the Jacob from 5 years ago. He wants to stop your hand from signing. I shook my head and whispered back. You said it yourself. That was him from 5 years ago. He was an illusion from your past. I looked at Mia and said in a quick tone, as if I was worried I would have second thoughts. Take this mate bond termination form and submit it to the Pack's Elder Council as soon as possible. Once Mia finished her task, she quickly called me back and said cautiously, Luna, the submission went smoothly. But I saw a she-wolf called Molly quietly reserving a large bonding ceremony hall. She said it was for her and Alpha Jacob. Do you wish to stop the bonding ceremony? No, there's no need to. Mia held her breath and didn't dare to say another word. I knew why she asked. Molly was Jacob's first love. There weren't many women who would allow her mate's first love to quietly prepare a bonding ceremony for them, Mia asked with a trembling voice, filled with pity. Luna, why are you doing this? I turned slowly to the window. The long and dazzling blue fireworks had finally faded in the air, leaving nothing but a line of words in the night sky. Happy 5th mate bond anniversary. Jacob and Cynthia. I looked away and sighed. Book my trip back to the Pale Moon Pack 7 days from now. On the same day as their bonding ceremony. You're going back to the Pale Moon Pack? Mia was shocked and quickly asked, please reconsider, Luna. This is not a minor decision. 5 years ago, on the day Jacob and I became mates, not only did he sign the mate bond termination form, but he also reached a pact with my parents. The pact was clear. If Jacob ever betrayed my love and I returned to the Pale Moon Pack alone, then Jacob could never step into the Pale Moon Pack ever again. He would lose any chance of asking for forgiveness, and he would never see me again. There's nothing left to consider, I said. 5 years of loving memories were indeed hard to let go of. My eyes welled up with tears, but that wasn't enough to make me change my decision. 7 days from now would be my birthday. I would leave Jacob and return to the Pale Moon Pack. At the same time, I would send Jacob to the bonding ceremony Molly had prepared for themselves. I would grant them their wish. Once Mia ended the call to work on my commands, I heard a notification on my phone that I glanced at the screen. Jacob had posted something openly on social media. Image, blue fireworks exploding across the night sky. Text, Luna Cynthia, happy 5th mate bond anniversary. Your alpha Jacob will always love you. After the post was made, it exploded with comments. I'm so envious. No wonder there was an hour's worth of fireworks in the sky tonight. Alpha Jacob was doing it for his mate bond anniversary with Cynthia. No surprises there. Alpha Jacob and Luna Cynthia have been mates for 5 years and celebrated big for all these 5 years. I look forward to seeing what they do next year. I heard Alpha Jacob suffered grievous injury in the battlefield last year and has just woken up from treatment. He's not fully conscious yet. The first thing he said after seeing his Luna was to ask her to go to rest and not watch over him all night. Their deep love touched even the healers. There was only one reply from Jacob for all the comments. Cynthia is my Luna. I love her. I spoil her. I will protect her for the rest of her life. That's my duty as her alpha. The replies exploded once more within seconds. All filled with admiration and envy, and I, the subject of their envy, simply stared at the empty seat because of Jacob's absence. Jacob and I used to have love, of course that we were in love for 7 years and bonded for 5. We never had a single fight that in those 7 years. Jacob gave me everything. Love, wealth, and the title of Luna. But 1 month ago, when he was supposedly away on a business trip, I discovered another woman was with him. Then I received a voice message from Jacob's account. I pressed play, and I heard an unfamiliar woman's voice. I just got back to the pack and all I needed to do was to play coy with Jacob, and he came right over. Tonight, he originally prepared blue fireworks for me. I don't like blue, but I decided to give it to you since I never liked to waste. You can use it during your mate bond anniversary. I didn't know who that woman was back then. Not until 2 weeks ago, when Jacob brought her into the living room at his side. Jacob introduced her as his distant cousin, Molly. Molly was all smiles and greeted me with a face full of makeup. Hello, Cynthia. I've always heard that you're the most envied woman in the world. We finally met in person. Her voice was exactly the same as the one in the voice message, and my mind went completely blank. It was getting difficult for me to handle the emotions inside of me, so I left early to stop myself from breaking down. However, Molly wasn't done. That night, she sent me another provocative message. You missed an exciting session on the terrace tonight. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it and left claw marks on my ex's chest. I gripped my phone tightly and stared at Jacob as he came home. He reeked of alcohol and was completely drunk. He immediately passed out on the bed the moment he walked in. Through his shirt that had 2 buttons loose, I saw his chest with all the claw marks. How ironic. The shirt he wore was a matching custom-designed shirt we had booked for last year's anniversary. On the collar, I had personally embroidered the words, Cynthia's mate. When Jacob first received the shirt, he was so touched that he held my hand and tenderly said, Cynthia, when I wear this shirt, it's like having you by my side. I don't think I'll ever let another woman come close to me while I'm wearing it. I won't let another scent contaminate this symbol of your love for me. Yet, a bold lipstick mark was smeared across the embroidery, making the words almost unreadable that I could almost see Molly smugly smirking at me from behind the lipstick stain. And then, today, on our 5th mate bond anniversary, I got a call from Jacob while I was at the restaurant. Honey, I'm setting up a surprise for you, so I can't make it to our candlelight dinner. As an apology, how about some fireworks? And with that, he hung up. 2 minutes later, my screen lit up. It was another message from his account. My heart skipped, and I tapped open the photo with my last shred of faith. In the photo, candlelight lit up Jacob's face. Flowers and a bottle of red wine were placed on the table. It was like a perfect romantic date, but the woman sitting across from him wasn't me. It was Molly. Then, another provocative message. I closed my eyes to hide my tears. I didn't want anyone to see how fragile I was, as if I was still that dignified and strong Luna. I couldn't understand how Jacob could declare his love for me publicly while still being with Molly at the same time. Was this really the kind of love the world envied? Chapter 2. I ignored Jacob's open announcement of his love for me on social media and went home. Then, I asked a maid for a pair of scissors. I pulled out the matching custom-designed shirt I had made and cut it into shreds. The sound of the fabric being torn apart was soft, but they seemed to have left slices on my heart. Then, I picked up the shredded fabric and placed our ring into a box labeled Second Mate Bond Gift. I meant to give this box to Jacob on the day I was going to leave. Maybe he would be thrilled when he received it. Or maybe excited, happy, but he didn't know that I was also returning all my shattered tenderness and love to him. Once I had tucked the box away, I ran into Jacob, who came back home. He smiled at me fondly as he took my hand and led me outside. "Honey, the surprise I planned for you is here. Come see it." Once outside, a massive pink gift box greeted me. Jacob snapped his fingers, and the box automatically opened. As a flurry of balloons and confetti burst into the sky, a pink Bugatti caught my eye. Two domestic helpers quickly raised a banner that read, "For my beloved Luna, Cynthia." Crowds gathered again as he presented his gift in such an extravagant manner, all of them sighing with envy. Jacob then handed me the keys, his eyes brimming with love. "Cynthia, didn't you say the seat in your car is a little uncomfortable?" I remembered it, so I chose a new car for you. As your alpha, I'll give you everything you want. Just when I was about to accept his gift, as I drowned myself in his eyes filled with burning passion, I suddenly saw a bracelet that I had never seen before around his wrist. It was something any woman could recognize. A bracelet made of a lace bra strap. My hand froze, and I felt my stomach churning. Jacob noticed the change in my expression and asked worryingly, "What's wrong, Cynthia? You don't want this car? You didn't like the color?" I shook my head and took the car keys, my voice trembling. "No, it's a wonderful car. But I never wanted a car. I wanted Jacob." He obviously sighed in relief, thinking that I was probably just too touched. Back in our bedroom, Jacob noticed a gift box on my dressing table. He wanted to see what it was, but I stepped in front of him. Jacob held my hands and said, "You prepared a surprise for me too, didn't you?" I pursed my lips, then said with a fake smile, "Of course. You know how I'll always treat others with kindness when they treat me well. But you can't open it yet. I'll give it to you and another gift 7 days later. I'm sure you'll love it." Jacob's eyes sparkled. He hugged me tightly and asked happily, "A double surprise? Is there a special day 7 days from now? Why can't I remember?" He thought for a moment before walking out of the bedroom and calling the butler. After a moment of realization, "I almost forgot. Cynthia's birthday is 7 days from now. Sebastian, prepare a grand birthday celebration. That's right, bigger than last year. I won't be cheap with my Luna." When Jacob was making the call, he didn't realize that I was staring at him from the bedroom doorway, my eyes colder than ever. He had never forgotten about my birthday during the 7 years we were together. The moment Molly returned, he forgot it completely. Everything in this world was fair. Since Jacob didn't come for the dinner I had painstakingly planned, I would be absent from the birthday party he was preparing for me. I wonder what kind of expression he would have later on. I lowered my eyes and texted Mia. "Which floor of which hotel is the birthday banquet that Jacob was planning? Have someone set up Molly's bonding ceremony directly above it." "Understood, Luna." Jacob was still calling the butler when I overheard the butler remind him, saying, "Alpha, remember that today is your mate bond anniversary with your Luna. You must take Luna to have dessert at the dessert oasis. The Luna will be sad if you don't. Ah, right. I almost forgot. Thanks for reminding me. Help me reserve Cynthia's favorite dessert. I'll take her there right now. I heard all of it clearly. Jacob helped me put my coat on. Cynthia, let's go have dessert. I've already made a reservation. We can eat as soon as we get there. The dessert oasis had been my favorite since my school days. It was also where Jacob and I first met. That was why Jacob would take me there for dessert during every anniversary. To thank the moon goddess for bringing us together. He had said that this was the day he treasured the most. It was the day when fate turned for him. It was a place he would never forget. He would book this place 1 week in advance and even arrange the plating as he chose my favorite pieces of dessert, but now, he only remembered this because the butler told me. My heart turned ice cold after that. What I once treasured had just become another line on his schedule, and what about me? What was I to him? It only strengthened my resolve to leave. After all, I prefer to walk away with some dignity left rather than becoming a Luna in name only. Soon, Jacob helped me out of a luxury car like a gentleman. As Alpha and Luna of the Black Flame Pack, many recognized us. All of them started to look at us excitedly. Oh, gods! That's the Alpha who spoils his Luna. I think I see them. They look like a perfect match for each other. I heard that Alpha Jacob will take his Luna to where they first met for dessert every anniversary. It's true. This is so romantic. Jacob covered for me as we walked toward the dessert oasis. Then he noticed a small speck of dust on the tip of my high heels. He then crouched down in front of everyone and wiped the dust off with his handkerchief. The crowd cheered as they looked at what he did. Some of the bolder werewolves even came to offer us their blessings. Alpha Jacob, you have only ever knelt before your wife as a ruler of your empire. You two are the most loving mates I have ever seen. I wish you everlasting love. Their blessings felt like knives cutting across my heart. I looked at the man kneeling before me with a blank expression before giving the crowd a distant, polite smile. Jacob and I entered Dessert Oasis and sat where we would usually sit. He then turned to the owner and asked, "Are the desserts ready?" "Blueberry layers, light cream. That is what Cynthia likes." "It's already ready. It's your 5th mate bond anniversary, isn't it?" The shop owner has a deep impression of us. She told us she had been telling everyone that since today was our anniversary, we would come eventually despite being so late at night due to how well our relationship was. Indeed, we came. The owner then brought the dessert over and asked us, full of compassion, "You've been together for 5 years and yet your love is still so deep. When are you planning to have a child?" Jacob looked at me affectionately and he couldn't even stop himself from smiling. "We'll let nature take its course. Maybe this year. Cynthia is so pretty, our baby will definitely be adorable. I can't wait to hold them already." I lowered my eyes and looked at the dessert in front of me. I couldn't even fake my smile anymore. Chapter 3. Jacob had only cut the dessert halfway through when he suddenly received a call. He whispered something to the other side before telling me that his car that was parked outside had been scratched. He wanted to take a look. Jacob frowned, looking genuinely troubled. "Go ahead and eat. Cynthia. I'll look at the car. I'll be quick. You can order a drink too, but don't drink anything cold or alcoholic though. Your cycle is coming in 3 days and I don't want to see you suffer, alright?" His words made the nearby customers in the dessert shop envious. Alpha Jacob is so considerate. He even remembers his Luna's cycle. I can't imagine it. If I were Cynthia, how happy would I be? The shop owner gave me a warm smile and said, "You're so lucky to be with a man who cherishes and is loyal to you, Luna Cynthia. That is something very rare." I smiled bitterly. True. It's very rare. So rare, in fact, that this so-called legendary love that everyone envied was just a performance. So rare that in fact, I had never actually found it. I didn't want to continue this topic, so I turned my head and looked out the window. Jacob quickly walked out of the dessert shop and passed by the luxury car we'd come in and climbed into another pink Ferrari parked next to it. The car looked familiar. If I wasn't mistaken, Molly arrived at the last gathering in that car. I heard it was a welcome home gift from Jacob that was worth several $1,000,000. It was around the same price as my Bugatti. Jacob was such a master of balancing acts. Molly and I. First love and mate. He didn't want to offend either. He kept everything between us delicately balanced. I couldn't see what was happening inside the car, but that familiar number sent another provoking text to me again. Unlock my phone. I already know that Jacob and Molly had yet again slipped into another private and intimate moment. With my hands trembling, I shoved my phone into the bottom of my bag. I looked at the dessert in front of me that was losing its freshness, and I could feel my stomach twist in dull pain. A heart wouldn't break with a loud bang. Instead, it would quietly splinter into countless pieces. The wolf within me growled. Angry, confused, disbelief, all mixed. But I forced it back inside. When I came to, I realized I had already destroyed the words written using chocolate on my cake with my fork. Happy 5th mate bond anniversary, all messed up. Half an hour later, Jacob finally returned. He looked at the cake that had barely been touched and my pale face before quickly asking in concern. What is it, honey? You don't look well. Are you feeling sick? Should I take you to the healer? His voice was full of concern, but I looked away. I couldn't bear to look at the face I once loved. I ran into something disgusting. I lost my appetite, I answered. What happened? Do you need me to deal with it? Jacob asked, becoming even more anxious that I looked at him with tears welling up in my eyes. You wouldn't want to know. Because the one who needed to be dealt with was him. Jacob couldn't understand why I was so upset. He wanted to give me a hug, but I moved away. I wiped my tears and walked straight out of the dessert oasis, hailing for a cab to go home. Jacob was still showing behind me. Where are you going, Cynthia? Wait for me. He then chased after me in his luxury car. Right behind him was the pink Ferrari. How laughable. We were like characters playing in a tragic comedy. As soon as I got out of the cab once I was home, I fell right into Jacob's arms. I struggled to break free, but he clung to me and refused to let go. He anxiously asked, Why are you angry, Cynthia? Is it because I didn't stay and eat dessert with you when I went to check on my scratched car? I stopped struggling and looked him dead in the eyes. I saw the worry, the guilt, but there was no shame at all. He still didn't think he did anything wrong. I gave him a bitter smile. That's right. Only because you didn't eat the cake with me. Jacob let out a sigh of relief. It's my fault. I shouldn't have left you alone because of a car. Next time, I'll stay with you even if my car is totaled next time. Then, he carefully took my hand and asked, I just received news that something happened to a business partner of mine and I need to check up on him. Is it all right if I leave you for a while? He was willing to make such an elaborate lie just for Molly. I pushed his hand and calmly said, Go, then. If your business partner is really that important. He kissed me with joy. It's a blessing to have a she-wolf like you to be my Luna, Cynthia. I endured the pain in my heart. But Jacob, you're not my blessing. Molly's pink Ferrari had already driven away. Even the smoke it left behind felt like a sneer. I took out my phone and called my mother. Mom, I'm coming back to the Pale Moon Pack in 7 days. I want to see you and Dad. My mom immediately felt the tremble in my voice from the other side. She anxiously asked, Cynthia, are you coming back alone or with Jacob? I said with a hoarse voice. I'm coming home alone. I could hear my mother's silence. She quickly understood what I meant from what I hadn't said. She suppressed her fury and worry and did her best to console me. "Don't be upset. I'll pick you up." I whispered okay, and tears finally rolled down my cheeks. Later that night, Jacob finally came home. He woke me up with his burning kiss. He was all drunk and kissed me again and again as he held my face. Perhaps he was still uneasy about the anger yesterday, so he kept on whispering words of love into my ears. "I love you so much, honey. You can be angry at me. You can hit me, yell at me. But don't leave me, all right? Don't worry, I swear I'll treat you well for the rest of my life." I said nothing and simply stared at Jacob in silence. He was so drunk that he forgot to clean the lipstick stain on his neck. I didn't know how he managed to escape the mate bond's punishment, but I could feel it. His love for me at this moment was real. I couldn't understand it. If he loved me, why did he treat me like this? When I woke up in the morning, Jacob had already picked out my clothes. He squeezed some toothpaste onto my toothbrush. He even tied my braids himself. However, when we were at breakfast, he once again gave me an apologetic look. "I'm sorry, Cynthia. I won't be home tonight. There's a gathering I need to attend in the pack." My hand holding the fork paused midair. I knew he was going to accompany Molly again. I couldn't even be bothered to expose him. I simply said the same word I always did again. "Sure." Coincidentally, my best friend Tessa invited me for tea in the afternoon. I needed the distraction too, so I went to the cafe. I had just barely sat down when Tessa patted my arm excitedly. "Look, Cynthia. Isn't that Alpha Jacob? Why is he standing in front of a bridal studio? Is he going to give you another surprise? Maybe shooting you in a new wedding gown?" I looked outside, and I just realized this cafe was right next to a bridal photo studio. Before I could even respond, a seductive she-wolf wrapped her arm around Jacob's and walked inside with him. The studio's employee was so loud that we could even hear it from our table. "You two are finally here. The bridal shoot setup you booked is already ready. By the way, you two look absolutely perfect together." Tessa's laughter stopped abruptly. Then, she saw me looking at what was happening with indifference. Tessa slammed the table and angrily yelled, "What's going on? Who's that woman next to Jacob? He wants to take wedding photos with someone else. This is ridiculous." I sighed and then told Tessa everything about Jacob and Molly that had happened lately. Then I showed Molly's provocative messages and pointed to the bridal shop, my voice shaking. "Look at it yourself, Tessa. It's Molly's birthday today. That's why Jacob is taking wedding photos with her." Inside the bridal studio, Jacob was adjusting Molly's cuff with care. His expression was gentle, as if he were touching something priceless. Tessa clenched her jaw. "I can't take it anymore. I'm going over to splash this cup of coffee on their faces." Tessa had always had a temper. She picked up the hot coffee and wanted to walk over, but I stopped her first. "Wait, Tessa. Don't alert them. I want to see what they'll do next." Half an hour later, Jacob and Molly walked out of the bridal studio. Jacob was wearing a black suit, sharp and majestic. Molly was wearing a white gown, showing her slender waist. Jacob's name was even intentionally tattooed across her collarbone. They got into a luxury car hand in hand and headed straight for the lake in the countryside. The photography crew had been waiting for a long time. A barrier had already been set up, so no other werewolves could interrupt them. However, Jacob's barrier never blocked me. He would never expect that I was standing behind a tree, watching him and Molly having a wedding photo shoot. The photographer approached and smiled fawningly. "You two are so good-looking, as if you're from a painting." Molly held Jacob's arm with a smile. "Well, I have great taste and chose the best man I can see." The photographer then said, "I'd like to use your wedding photos to advertise our shop if that's dash." Before the photographer could even finish, Jacob quickly cut him off. No. The photographer was startled before he apologized. All right, sure. I understand. Molly's expression darkened. During the rest of the shoot, she kept on saying that the weather was too cold and asked Jacob to help her put on his coat. Then she said she was not in a good enough mood, wanting Jacob to hold her up so she could find her joy. Jacob was also patient with her. How about now? Do you need me to do anything else? Just tell me if you want anything. For the last shot, Jacob dropped down on one knee. Even the night wind became still as all eyes turned to him. Then, under Molly's shocking gaze, he pulled out a bouquet of red roses. There was a ring in the center of the roses. You kept on saying that wearing the wedding gown is just a dream of yours. While you said you didn't need a proposal, I don't want you to have any regrets. Molly, will you take this ring? Molly was stunned, then tears welled in her eyes as she screamed, yes. Yes, I will. Cheers surrounded them. Marriage. Marriage. Meanwhile, I glared at what was happening from my car behind the tree, feeling a chill in my soul. Chapter 5. 5 years ago, when Jacob had proposed to me, he had looked at me with those same devoted eyes that I still remembered. He was also wearing the same sharp black suit, holding a bouquet of blue roses. He then proposed with a ring that was one of a kind in the world. He was even teary-eyed when he proposed to me. Cynthia, I swear I'll only love you. I'll take care of you. No other woman will ever find a place in my heart. So, please. Bond with me and be my mate, all right? I let out a bitter laugh. Then, I broke into tears halfway through. Everything was a lie. The vow was a lie. Taking care of me was also a lie. Even love could change. Tessa couldn't bear to look at me as she gently wiped the tears from my face. They're gone, Cynthia. Should we still follow them? I shook my head. Let's go. I didn't want to stay here for another second. Tessa originally wanted to send me home, but I refused her. It's fine. I know you're worried about me, but my mind's a mess. I need some time alone. Tessa didn't console me anymore. She knew how I felt. Once she left, I wandered the streets without aim. It was during deep winter and the temperature had dropped below freezing. I had only come out wearing a light coat, but compared to the chill I'm feeling on my flesh, my heart was even colder. I didn't know how long I'd walked before my phone buzzed again. It was from Jacob's account. I tapped them open. 3 sweet wedding photos entered my eyes, almost blinding me. One was when they got out of a car. Jacob was holding up the skirt of Molly's wedding gown as she smiled smugly. Another one was when Molly was in Jacob's arms. The two of them were intimately close together. The final one was when Jacob went down on one knee, holding out a dazzling diamond ring. Molly texted, "We took our wedding photos today, and he even prepared a ring for the proposal." I was so touched. He even came and met my parents. They were very happy with Jacob. Other than being unable to form a mate bond, we had already completed all the procedures. To be honest, I don't mind you being a Luna. Since he'll just throw you aside and always come to me. Just you wait. Molly's sneers were like blades, stabbing straight into my heart. I froze, unable to respond. After a long while, I finally forwarded the photos and chat record to Mia, along with a message, "Show these at their wedding." Then I switched my phone off as I walked on the streets with my mind clouded. My mind was so consumed with everything that had happened that I couldn't even move. When I finally realized a car had lost control and came right at me, there was an explosion of pain. And then, only darkness remained. I didn't know how long it had passed. When I once again opened my eyes, all I could smell was the sharp smell of antiseptic typical of medical settings. Jacob was slouching over the hospital bed, gripping my hand. He instantly noticed when I stirred. He looked at me with frantic eyes, filled with fear and regret. "You're finally awake, Cynthia. Do you feel pain anywhere? Should I call the healers?" I'm so scared. I turned my head slightly, my eyes falling on Jacob. His clothes were all wrinkled and his eyes were red. It was obvious that he had been staying by my side for a long time. His pain was also genuine, like he wished he were the one suffering the injuries and not me. But all I felt was disgust. When I looked at his face, I was reminded of him taking those wedding photos with Molly. Jacob, which is the real you? I can't trust you anymore. Chapter 6. Why aren't you saying anything? Are you feeling pain anywhere? I'll get the healer right away. Jacob immediately got up, but I stopped him. I asked him in a hoarse voice, why are you here? Jacob was stunned by my question. When the healer called, he was dining with Molly and her parents. When he heard about my accident, he didn't hesitate when he rushed over, leaving Molly and her family behind. Thankfully, my wolf was quite powerful, and most of my injuries were healed, so I was mostly fine. He then said, I was having dinner with my business partners. We were finalizing details for a big project, but when the healer called me about the accident, I came right away. I repeated parts of his sentence. Dinner with your business partners. Jacob held my hands up to his cheek, as if trying to show his vulnerable side. That's right. Business talks are quite exhausting. Another lie that I closed my eyes slowly and didn't offer him any comforting words. Jacob accompanied me, but his phone suddenly started ringing that he decisively hung up the call, but the other side kept on calling. The caller didn't seem to want to give up. Jacob had no choice but to switch it to silent mode and started typing away with his head low. A minute later, he excitedly switched off the phone and made up an excuse before leaving the private room. It was long when Tessa walked in with a dark expression. Cynthia, guess who I ran into on my way here? It was such a simple question. I sighed. Jacob? Tessa furiously said, he left you alone and went out after what happened. I quietly followed him and noticed that he and Molly went to the gynecology department. Jacob was practically grinning when Molly received her pregnancy report. I looked down with a thought in my mind, but my expression didn't show any hint of being upset. I see. Molly's with pup. Tessa looked at me carefully. She felt something was off with my reaction. Aren't you upset? You don't have to act strong in front of me. I revealed a pale smile. No, there's something you don't know. Jacob has a genetic condition. The best healer once told me he could never have his own pup. 3 years ago, Jacob and I tried our best for one entire year. I thought I was the problem, so I secretly went for tests at the hospital. The result was that Jacob had a congenital infertility disorder. I couldn't sleep that night. I couldn't accept that I'd never have my pup. I even hid this truth on Jacob's behalf, telling the outside world that I was the one with the problem, and I could only have my own pup after long-term treatment. All because I was worried that Jacob's dignity and reputation would be ruined. But now, after seeing Jacob being so excited for a pup that wasn't his, it made all my effort to hide this for him feel meaningless. What? That's huge news. Teresa almost jumped out of her seat after hearing what I had to say. Then, her eyes narrowed as she came up with an idea. Let's see here. You're going back to the Pale Moon Pack in 5 days, so we'll pretend we don't know about the pregnancy. Once the baby is born, we'll send Jacob his own infertility report. He will be so regretful he'll go insane. The next day, Jacob didn't show up at the hospital. Mia came to my private room. After she reported to me about the preparation for the wedding, she was hesitant about mentioning something else. I frowned. Tell me what you have in mind. Mia then whispered, when I went to the villa this afternoon to take some files, I saw Molly walking out of the bedroom in your sleepwear. Luna, you've always been kind to me. I simply can't ignore this. That's why I want to tell you about this first. I felt utterly crushed. I was still in the hospital, and Molly couldn't wait anymore and moved into the bedroom that Jacob and I shared. No wonder Jacob told me to inform him before being discharged, so he could pick me up. I gritted my teeth. and my throat almost closed up. I could hear the ragged sounds of my breathing. Thanks. I understand. Chapter 7. 3 days before my departure, Jacob came to visit me early with a flask of chicken soup. I asked the chef to make it. It's made the way you like it. Have a taste. I didn't refuse. And ate the soup slowly. He simply watched me with a smile as he waited at the side, as if the sight of me eating was enough to make him happy, but I knew it was all fake. After he left, I pulled out a memory sphere that I had asked Mia to buy for me from a sorcerer. Then, I watched what had happened at the villa. In the living room, Molly was complaining about wanting to go shopping. It was raining, and the roads were slippery. Jacob, worried that she would fall and hurt the pup, simply contacted all the shops selling luxury branded goods to come to the villa to let Molly choose. He even had a shop selling pup clothing to bring over their collection for newborn pups. I stopped crying. Tears had little value. It was worth so little that it couldn't change anything. I quietly wondered how the alpha that I used to trust wholeheartedly had become someone like a stranger. I could barely recognize him now. That night, the pack elder, Elder Sam, came to my private room in the hospital. Luna Cynthia, your mate bond termination request will take effect soon. Are you leaving the Black Flame pack? I'm sorry, but I've already decided. If you miss me, you can always find me at the Pale Moon pack. Elder Sam sighed and looked at me with sadness. I'm deeply saddened that you're leaving. As a goodbye gift, I've asked for the help of the sorcerer to ensure you and Alpha Jacob feel no pain when your mate bond is severed. Cynthia, it's not that you're not good enough. Instead, you're the best. So much. So that people simply take and forget that you need to be cherished, too. Thanks, I said as I looked at the mate bond termination agreement. Then, I turned to Mia and said, make a copy of this and put it in a gift box labeled as Second Mate Bond Gift. It was time for this 7-year bond of torment with Jacob to end. 2 days before my departure, Jacob showed up with a bouquet of sunflowers and a charm that supposedly cost $1 million. I was recovering well, and he personally helped me put on the charm with a bright smile on his face. I've asked the healer. You can be discharged tomorrow. I got this protection charm just for you. It'll keep you safe. I looked at the charm around my neck coldly, and my fingers slowly brushed over the engravings. I knew this was another lie. Last night, Molly's belly was in pain. So, Jacob sent Molly to the hospital and asked for a pup protection charm. As for my protection charm, it was just an afterthought as he bought it from the sorcerer. I adjusted the charm so that it would be far from my heart, just like how Jacob was no longer close to my heart. After Jacob left, Mia came to make her report. Luna, the wedding invitations are all ready. After you leave, I'll have the others send the invitations on Molly's behalf. She paused and then said in hesitation, Alpha Jacob had just bought the villa behind yours for a very high price. I frowned. Wasn't there someone living in that villa at all times? That's right, Luna. But Alpha Jacob paid a fortune to get the family to leave. I heard that Molly's name was the only name on the property deed. It is a gift for her pregnancy. I pressed my lips, my heart hurt so much it was numbing, but my expression remained calm. Jacob was preparing to secretly dote on Molly so that she could live a life of luxury just like a Luna. I should have known. He had never been mine alone, just like he promised. That evening, I watched through the memory sphere as Molly unwillingly ordered her maids to pack up her things to move into the new villa at the back. And then, it was the last day before I left Jacob. Jacob came to pick me up early in the morning. He buckled my seatbelt and smiled, "Today's your birthday, Cynthia. I've arranged everything. The party starts at 7. Remember to invite your friends." I nodded. Sure. The car rolled into the neighborhood. After 4 days, I was finally back home. Everything looked the same, as if Molly had never lived here. But when I walked into the master bedroom, I noticed that there was lipstick on my dressing table. It had been used. The lipstick that was intentionally left behind was like a statement. I should have felt anger, disappointment, and pain. But nothing. There was only silence. Even my wolf couldn't make any excuses for this bond anymore. I didn't stay long in the master bedroom when a servant called me down for my meal. At the table, Jacob peeled a fruit and held it to my mouth. He was so gentle, affectionate, just like he had been with Molly 2 days ago. That I chewed slowly and saw the softness in his eyes. I suddenly asked, if I leave you one day, will you feel sad? Jacob's hand shook and the fruit dropped on the table. Then, he turned to me sharply, his voice filled with anxiety. How can you even say that, honey? Sad? I'll go crazy. Just hearing the world leave makes me feel like my heart is being ripped out. He then held my hand tightly, like he was afraid I would really disappear. At that moment, I had to admit. I hesitated. His words were so moving, so sincere. My thoughts of leaving were stopped when he said he would go crazy. However, his phone played a tone in the few moments I hesitated. I looked. It was a message from Molly. My vagina is bleeding. It hurts. Honey, is our pup going to be okay? There was a flash of panic in Jacob's eyes as he immediately stood up. Cynthia, there's something wrong with the party setup. I'll head on over to handle it. I'll pick you up for the party later. He turned to leave, but I suddenly grabbed his hand. Then, I gave him a faint smile. Goodbye, Jacob. He suddenly turned and looked at me. But before he could say anything, I had already let go. Something inside Jacob jolted. In the past, his reflection was the only one that filled my eyes. But there was only silence in my eyes now. He wasn't even sure when it started. Cynthia, just wait. Jacob wanted to say something again, but his phone rang. Jacob frowned and hesitated. In the end, he chose to turn and leave. I watched him leave, and I thought, no. No more waiting. I went to the master bedroom, grabbed all my documents, and tossed the protective charm into the bin. Then, I called Mia. Jacob is away with Molly. I'm leaving the pack now. Once I leave the Black Flame pack, proceed as planned. Understood. An hour later, I had crossed the Black Flame pack's border. Then, I sent my parents my location. I then texted Jacob, I prepared 2 gifts for you tonight. I hope you like them. Jacob immediately replied, I'm so excited. I'm still finalizing the party setup. I'll personally see that they prepare the perfect birthday banquet for you. Give me a minute. I'll come pick you up soon. I shook my head. Then, I replied, no need. I'll go to the hotel myself. But I wouldn't go, of course. I pulled out the SIM card and tossed it into the bin. I had destroyed every way he could contact me. Goodbye, Jacob. From this moment onward, you would never see me again. Chapter 8. It was 6:30. Jacob was waiting at the hotel entrance. Many guests had already arrived, most of them were our mutual friends. Jacob scanned the banquet hall, but he couldn't find me. He frowned tightly and pulled out his phone and dialed my number. Number you have dialed is unavailable. When the robotic voice reached Jacob, his heart skipped a beat as a chill went down his spine. Was Cynthia angry? Was she not going to attend the banquet tonight? His fingers clenched tightly, his mind spinning. He forced himself to recall. Afternoon, when they were having lunch, he suddenly received news that Molly was showing signs of a miscarriage. He left Cynthia behind and rushed Molly to the hospital. The doctor said it was induced by stress. He needed to accompany her more. Today was Cynthia's birthday. He planned to take care of Molly quickly and return to spend the evening with Cynthia. However, Molly refused to let him leave as she held onto him from the hospital bed, and even pressed his hand on her stomach. The pup wants Daddy to stay, so stay with us. Jacob's expression turned cold, and he refused. No. Today is Cynthia's birthday. I need to accompany her. But the moment he turned to leave, Molly bent over and cried out in pain in her bed. At that moment, he caved. So he stayed an entire afternoon at the hospital. Only when it was close to the time of the birthday banquet did Jacob leave Molly after sweet-talking her. But when he finally arrived at the hotel, he noticed he couldn't contact me at all. "Cynthia, where are you?" Jacob mumbled under his breath. His instincts as an alpha were clawing at him. Something was wrong with me. Or worse. Mia had been waiting patiently nearby. She glanced at her watch, then stepped forward with an ornate gift box in a calm voice. "Alpha, Lady Cynthia had prepared 2 surprises for you tonight. Would you like to open them now?" Jacob took the box and had just wanted to open it when he noticed the words labeled on the box. "Second mate bond gift." His expression darkened as his voice turned cold. "What's this? Why is this labeled like this? Did you get the wrong box?" Mia shook her head, her tone as calm as usual. "I didn't get the wrong box, Alpha. Lady Cynthia personally handed this to me." The feeling of dread was becoming more and more apparent. Jacob shoved the box into Ma's arms and stepped away, as if it were something that couldn't be touched. Then, he pulled out his phone and called his butler Sebastian back at the villa. "Has Cynthia left?" "Asked her to get ready. I'll pick her up for her birthday banquet." There was a pause on the other side, and Sebastian's voice came through with a cautious tone. "Sir, the Luna left 6 hours ago with her suitcase." Jacob's heart skipped a beat as he raised his voice. "What? Where did she go? Why didn't you inform me?" Sebastian helplessly said, "Before she left, Luna Cynthia thanked us for the past 5 years and gave everyone a generous monetary gift. She also ordered that no one was to inform you of her leaving." Jacob could feel his head throb. He felt like his head was going to explode at any time. He wanted to storm back to the villa, but the hall was already filled with guests. He couldn't simply vanish. He gritted his teeth as he said to Sebastian, "Go to my bedroom and check the bedside drawer. Left side, first drawer. See if Cynthia's documents are all still inside." A few minutes later, Sebastian's trembling voice came back. "Sir, only your documents still remain. The Luna's documents are all gone." He paused and added, "Also after you left in the afternoon, the madam told the house staff to clean up all her belongings. She said she wanted to donate them all to the orphanage." Jacob froze as his hand holding the phone froze. There was panic in his eyes. Even fear. Cynthia took her personal documents and gave everything away. Was she really going to leave him? Was she really going to disappear from his life on her birthday and start a new life? He couldn't believe it. He refused to believe it. Jacob hung up and frantically tried to reach me. "Cynthia, aren't we going to celebrate your birthday together? Stop being mad. Where are you? I'll pick you up." The moment he sent the message, a red exclamation point popped up. I had already blocked him. Jacob stared at the screen, stunned. He refused to give up and sent again. "Cynthia." It was the same. The message couldn't be sent. Mia stood nearby silently and looked at Jacob, who was feeling disoriented and confused. She once again brought the gift box to him. "Alpha, Lady Cynthia asked you to open it. Her answer is inside." Chapter 9. Jacob snapped back, and his eyes fixed on the gift box Mia was holding. His mind was completely blank. Then, he slowly opened the box. Inside the box were shreds of a custom-designed shirt meant for a woman. The collar on the top still bore the embroidery. It said, "Jacob's mate." I had personally sewn those words myself. Now, they were nothing but shreds of fabric. Jacob picked up the fabric with trembling fingers. He could barely stand straight that he muttered to himself in a hoarse whisper, "Is this the gift Cynthia wanted to give me?" She cut the shirt. No, she would never do that. This has to be some kind of joke. But the memory from 1 year ago appeared in his mind. On our 4th mate bond anniversary, I had given him that shirt. My smile was soft and sweet. "Jacob, we are true mates blessed by the moon goddess. I enjoyed every single day I was with you. But if you ever betray me and make me disappointed in you, I'll destroy all these with my own hands and leave you forever." Jacob stood there motionlessly, as if something had drained the strength out of him. Why did Cynthia cut up the shirt with her own hands? Could it be that she had already found out about him and Molly? Mia quietly reminded Jacob when she saw he was not moving, "Alpha, there's something else at the bottom of the box." Jacob clenched and quickly put the shredded fabric from the torn shirt aside. At the bottom of the gift box, a paper document caught his eye. He gave it a look, and his entire body shuddered. It was the formal agreement to sever their mate bond. Jacob's fingers instinctively curled inward. At that moment, he suddenly noticed something. He couldn't sense me anymore. The scent was deeply rooted within his blood, the bond that came from the soul itself. It had completely disappeared. His Luna had completely severed their bond. Jacob lowered his head, his fingers trembled as they touched the agreement. "Isn't real. Cynthia wouldn't just leave me suddenly. This has to be a joke, right?" His voice was so hoarse that it was barely audible. It was like he was comforting himself after he was consumed by his delusion. Mia was silent for a moment before giving him a look with mixed feelings. She then said, "Alpha, Lady Cynthia left you with a second surprise on the 3rd floor. Allow me to guide you there." Jacob's face instantly turned grim as his brows knitted tighter. He resisted it instinctively. "I'm not going." He didn't want to face it. He was scared that something that would make him fall into despair was really waiting for him on the 3rd floor. Mia lowered her eyes and calmly said, "Lady Cynthia told me that if you refuse to go upstairs, then I shall repeat her exact words to you. She said, 'This is the last surprise I've prepared for you. It's up to you whether to receive it or not.'" There was silence between them for a few seconds. Jacob's face twisted in pain. The struggle was visible on his face. After a long hesitation, he finally moved toward the elevator. Mia was right behind Jacob. The moment the elevator door closed, she looked down and unlocked her phone. Then, she sent out Molly's invitation. At that moment, every guest on the 2nd floor felt their phones starting to buzz. Everyone looked down and checked their phone, and there was immediately a commotion there. "What's this? I just received an invitation to Alpha, Jacob and Molly's wedding. Hold on, wasn't Cynthia's birthday today? Wasn't he throwing her a surprise? Did they seriously just sever their mate bond? Oh gods! We're about to watch the scandal of the year." Some of them gasped out loudly, some of them exchanged glances, but after that moment, all of them surged to the 3rd floor to find out the truth. Meanwhile, on the 3rd floor, the elevator door slid open. Jacob stepped out, and he froze. Lining both sides of the corridor were display boards of him and Molly in a black suit and wedding gown. Though the photos looked romantic and sweet, every photo felt like a mockery. At the end of the doorway into the banquet hall, there was a glaring banner, "Congratulations. Happy bonding ceremony, Alpha Jacob and Ms. Molly." Jacob's expression instantly darkened, his dark eyes becoming frosty. "Don't tell me this is the surprise Cynthia prepared." Mia shook her head and calmly said, "No, Molly was the one who prepared this bonding ceremony. Lady Cynthia's surprise is further inside." She pointed at the center of the hall. Chapter 10. Jacob's mind went blank for a moment. He couldn't even remember how he had walked into the hall. It wasn't until he was standing in the bonding ceremony hall that he was stunned in place. On the massive LED screen, it was playing the following photos in sequence. The official mate bond termination agreement between him and Cynthia, the 99 wedding photos of him and Molly, and the photos of him dining with Molly's parents. Jacob staggered back and collapsed into A chair, as if his soul had been ripped from his body. The moments he had spent with Cynthia during this time started to play in his mind. Only then did he realize that Cynthia must have known about Molly all this time. Otherwise, she wouldn't have looked at him with such hollow eyes when he left her during lunch, and her goodbye sounded like a final farewell. Here, he foolishly thought that he had hidden everything perfectly, but his relationship with Molly was just physical. He didn't have any feelings for her. Cynthia had it all wrong. The only woman he had ever loved was her. He turned to Mia, his eyes filled with anguish as he asked, "Where did she go?" Mia shook her head with an indifferent expression. "I'm sorry. Lady Cynthia instructed me not to tell you." Then, hurried footsteps echoed at the entrance. Molly entered the hall excitedly in her wedding dress. She looked at the bridal photo on the screen. Her expression was filled with excitement. She no longer looked as fragile as she did back in the afternoon back at the hospital. "So, was this the surprise? You have already prepared our bonding ceremony all along. You even arranged to have all our photos shown on screen. I love this surprise so much." Molly looked enthralled, as if she could already see herself becoming Jacob's Luna. However, Jacob's expression was very dark. "Who allowed you to prepare the bonding ceremony? Go home. Don't cause any commotion here. I'll speak to you later tonight." Molly pouted, the expression on her pretty face turned into a sulk. "Didn't you say you'd give me a proper bonding ceremony as compensation? I didn't want to bother you, so I quietly prepared it myself. What do you think? Like it? My parents will be here soon. I want them to witness our romance together." Molly's words gave Jacob a headache that he had just wanted to tell her to scram when suddenly, there was a commotion at the doorway. The guests from the lower floor had arrived. They followed the path that was covered in flowers and silk ribbons, and found the hall where the bonding ceremony was going to take place, and started to search for Jacob. But when they looked up at the massive LED screen and saw the content, they couldn't help but gasp at a mate bond termination agreement. Jacob and Molly's bridal photos, Jacob having dinner with Molly's parents. Suddenly, the screen flickered. It switched to something new. It was a video taken by the lake. In a car, Jacob and Molly were having an intimate moment together. The entire hall turned silent. Then, someone broke the silence and cried out, "The banquet isn't for Cynthia. The video inside is the woman in the wedding dress." Oh, God's in a car. Really? That's so disgusting. No money can buy class. I thought he was a good alpha. Poor Cynthia. The crowd burst into whispers and murmurs. Some of them were simply there to watch the show unfold. Some of them were shocked. Some of them were amused. But most of them felt sympathy for me. My friends didn't hold back at all as they mocked Jacob. So he cheated while he was still bonded to Cynthia. That's so disgusting. No wonder Cynthia didn't even bother showing up to her birthday banquet. She must have seen through him for what he really is. He has pretended to be so loyal all this while. The world's most loyal alpha. In the end, he simply betrayed Cynthia so easily. The woman he's cheating with doesn't look any prettier, and it's not worth giving up Cynthia for her. What is he thinking? Jacob's expression turned pale, and he immediately called the hotel manager to switch off the screen. Then, the screen lit up again, and new content was shown. Screenshots of the chats were being played one after another. They were messages that were sent from Jacob's account that I had personally organized. The first one was a voice message from Molly. Mia had even included the audio for this particular slide. Molly's sweet voice came out from the speakers. "I just got back to the pack, and all I needed to do was to play coy with Jacob, and he came right over. Tonight, he originally prepared blue fireworks for me. I didn't like blue, but I decided to give it to you since I never liked to waste. You can use it during your mate bond anniversary." The crowd erupted in murmurs once again. The guests could only stare in shock. Molly instantly became anxious as she grabbed the dress of her wedding gown tightly as her knuckles turned pale. That madwoman, how could she display the chats? Chapter 11. The guests lowered their heads and started to exchange glances and murmurs. What was going on? Why was Molly's voice in the voice message that came from Jacob's account? Just when the atmosphere in the hall became tense, an observant guest suddenly spoke up and pointed out something critical. This is just a guess, but is it possible that Molly sent these messages to Cynthia using Jacob's phone? That was enough to clarify what was haunting everyone, and it made them even angrier. How are homewreckers this bold now? She used the Alpha's phone to taunt the real Luna. No, even though I'm Jacob's friend, I can never accept something like this. I need something to yell at. How could she be so smug when she was a homewrecker? Where's her decency? Jacob's friends were there as well, but now? All of them were openly condemning Molly. With my friends, there was fury in Jacob's eyes. His steps were heavy and deliberate as he walked over to Molly. With every step taken, the weight of his presence thickened. You told me you borrowed my phone for gaming, but you used it to send such provocative messages to Cynthia. I warned you I can give you anything you want, but you can never let Cynthia know about you. I also said that I will only have one Luna in my life, and that's Cynthia. Jacob's eyes locked onto the chat record still displayed on the screen, his chest tightening with guilt and regret that he suddenly realized just how much pain Cynthia had been enduring these past few days. Helpless she must have felt. If he were on the receiving end of it, he would have already lost control a long time ago. His expression turned pale as he stared at Molly, his eyes sharp. He wished he could punish Molly immediately. Molly lowered her head, trying to justify herself and pinning the blame on me as tears welled in her eyes. She was the one who called me and yelled at me. I simply fought back because I got mad. I wouldn't have said anything if she hadn't provoked me first. Jacob's eyes reddened as he grabbed Molly by the throat harshly and said, You're still trying to argue with me. How can someone as gentle and graceful as Cynthia call you and yell at you? She wouldn't even waste her time on you. Molly gasped for air, her face turning purple as she forced out a few words in pain. It hurts, my stomach hurts. Jacob drew a deep breath and loosened his grip. Molly gasped and stumbled away, fear written across her face. The hotel manager rushed to the third floor and used the remote control, but realized the screen was unresponsive. He had no choice but to cut off its power. The chaos finally quelled, but the heavy atmosphere in the hall remained. The guests dispersed, leaving only Jacob alone in the hall. He picked up his phone and called Tessa's number. The moment the call went through, Tessa spoke with a mocking tone, My. Isn't today the bonding ceremony between you and Molly? Congrats. Such a shame that Cynthia couldn't make it to your second mate bonding ceremony. Jacob's voice was low and strained as he said, This is all just a misunderstanding. I'll explain everything to Cynthia. A misunderstanding? Tessa scoffed icily. It's a misunderstanding when you impregnated your first love. You know more than anyone how much Cynthia sacrificed for this relationship. Jacob's heart skipped, remembering just how much Cynthia had endured and sacrificed. When I first met Jacob, I was studying at Prime University in the Neutral Territory. I was planning to return to my family at the Pale Moon Pack after I graduated. But Jacob's appearance had changed my plans. I grew up around my parents, but I was still determined to stay in the Black Flame Pack despite only visiting the Pale Moon Pack for 1 week each year. All of this was because of Jacob's words, Stay with me. I can't live without you. I held on to that sentence for 5 years. All these years, outsiders simply thought I was just another pretty face. But few knew that I was the one who supported and maintained the important contacts for Jacob in the shadows. I wasn't just a gentle, graceful Luna. I was also his most trusted assistant. For 5 years, everyone in the Black Flame Pack adored me, believing I was the perfect Luna. Jacob's face grew white, his voice hoarse, Cynthia, she knows Molly's pregnant. He thought he had hidden it perfectly. Was it Molly who told her? Tessa sneered on the other side. Are you seriously going to hide this from Cynthia forever? You're planning to let that homewrecker have the pup, then make them your heir, right? It was at this moment that Tessa was relieved I decided to leave in time. A hypocrite like Jacob didn't deserve all my sacrifices. Jacob's eyes darkened when he was called out. Where is she? I need to find her and explain this to her. But Tessa suddenly changed the topic and asked, can you make Molly end her pregnancy? If you can, I can tell you where she is. Chapter 12. Jacob hesitated for a while and sighed. He then said to Tessa on the other side of the phone, you probably don't know about this, but Cynthia can't bear any pups. Once Molly gives birth, I'll send her away from the Black Flame Pack. She'll never show up again. Tessa quietly shook her head, feeling that I deserved better. Not only had I stayed in the Black Flame Pack for love, but I even quietly took the heat for not being able to have pups for Jacob's sake. But after I had just left, the first thing on Jacob's mind was still his pup. Even if Cynthia couldn't conceive, Jacob shouldn't have chosen the cruelest choice of all. Letting his first love carry his pup. Then, there's nothing more to say. You'll eventually pay for everything you've done. Jacob frowned, sensing that Tessa meant something else. He wanted to ask more, but she had already hung up. He didn't want to give up and began calling each of my good friends, asking where I was, but other than Tessa, almost all my friends were there at my birthday banquet, now that they knew he had cheated with his first love. Their attitude toward him changed, some ignored his calls, some started to yell at him the moment they picked up the call, questioning him on my behalf. After dozens of calls, none of them told Jacob where I was. With no other choice, he used his connections and hired professionals to track me down. At Jacob's office the next day, his beta entered and cautiously said, Alpha, Luna, Cynthia has returned to the Pale Moon Pack. Jacob's expression darkened as he shut his eyes, instantly falling into despair. During our bonding ceremony 5 years ago, my parents had made him sign an agreement that if I ever returned to the Pale Moon Pack because of him breaking my heart, he would be forbidden from ever setting foot in the Pale Moon Pack's territory. Otherwise, all his assets would be transferred to me. He stayed silent for a few seconds before making an order with a hoarse voice. Book me a flight to the Pale Moon Pack. The earlier the better. His beta was stunned and cautiously reminded him, Alpha, the moment you cross into the Pale Moon's Pack territory, the contract will automatically take effect no matter what the results are. You'll lose everything in that instant. Are you sure? Yeah. Jacob couldn't wait any longer. He had to find Cynthia and personally explain to her. After telling his assistant to handle the booking, he then drove back to the villa. He didn't dare to go home last night. When he came back, he realized everything Sebastian said was true. All of my things were gone. Stepped into the master bedroom and opened the bedside drawer. My documents were gone too. Jacob stood there motionless, staring at the hollow bedroom. He also felt like there was an emptiness where his heart was. So, a home without Cynthia feels so suffocating. He ordered the home staff to pack his bags and print out our photos on his phone. He was going to the Pale Moon Pack. Just as he was about to leave, someone ran in and hugged him. It was Molly. She raised her head and looked at him, voice trembling. If you go to the Pale Moon Pack, what about me and our pup? She just found out that Jacob was heading to the Pale Moon Pack 10 minutes ago. Once he set foot in that territory, everything he owned would belong to me. Molly panicked. Jacob hesitated. I'll only stay for a week. I'll be back soon. Molly shook her head and roared in anger. If you leave, I won't keep the pup. She didn't want to bear a pup for a poor man. Jacob was silent for a few seconds before giving in. I'll stay with you for 2 months. Once your pregnancy stabilizes, I'll have to leave. Then, he held Molly's chin up and looked at her with cold eyes. You better deliver that pup safely. Otherwise, you won't want to know what will happen to you. Molly instinctively took a step back, looking at the murderous intent in his eyes. What would happen if he found out that the pup inside of her wasn't his? He wouldn't. She had hidden it well. No one would find out. Chapter 13. As Jacob and Molly were having the conversation, I was at the airport that I dragged my suitcase through the arrival terminal and spotted my parents waiting outside. My mother recognized me instantly, her eyes turned red. My wolf also whimpered faintly in my chest. She almost couldn't stand properly when she saw how I looked, her precious daughter, whom she cherished and doted on. How could she become so drained, exhausted, and hollow in 5 years of marriage? Is everything between you and Jacob settled? She asked as her voice choked. She and Dad had heard everything from their friends last night. The news of Jacob taking wedding photos with his first love behind my back and meeting her parents had spread. Even those at the Pale Moon Pack had heard of it. I stood there looking at my parents, my throat dry. Dad, Mom, I'm so sorry. There were the Pale Moon Pack's Alpha and Luna. They had always been respected and reputable. After what happened to me, they were bound to become the targets of gossip. My mom pulled me into her embrace and gently stroked my hair. My dear, sweet child. It's not your fault. You gave everything for love. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. The ones who should feel embarrassed are those who betray their mates. My dad, who had been silent up until now, also nodded. That's right. You're lucky to be able to divorce a man like that. Don't be afraid now that you're back in the Pale Moon Pack. We'll take care of you forever. If you don't want to take over the pack's affairs, then don't. What we have earned for these past years is enough for you to live comfortably for several lifetimes. My mom held my hand and looked at me with worry just like when I was still little, her voice so tender that I almost broke into tears. We have you so you can enjoy life, not to suffer. Severing your mate bond isn't the end of the world. You have what it takes to make mistakes and start over. I gently nodded with my eyes red. My mom was a famous professional woman. When she married my dad in her youth, it was a situation where both strong figures benefited each other. However, they had always doted on me, their only daughter. That I sniffed, and I could feel my frozen heart slowly begin to thaw. No matter how the world changed, my parents would always be my rock. Dad, Mom, I want to rest and recover my health first. Then, I'll start studying. Once I'm ready, I'll take over the pack's affairs. I gave all my time to love in the past 7 years. Now, it was time I lived for myself for once. This time, I wouldn't compromise for anyone. Back in Black Flame Pack, Molly was becoming more and more anxious. Jacob visited her less and less. Every time, he would just touch her belly before rushing off again. He never treated her as his woman. He was simply treating her as a means to produce an heir. There was only 1 month left before his journey to the Pale Moon Pack. Molly was beginning to lose her confidence. She knew that once Jacob headed to the Pale Moon Pack, there was no longer any room for her in his life. Desperate, she dialed a number that was familiar yet untouched for a long time. That evening, a black car drove into the neighborhood and stopped right outside her gate. A young werewolf stepped out of the passenger side of the car and drove off. The man's eyes were indolent, his demeanor roguish. It was obvious he wasn't someone one could trust. But the moment Molly saw him, she quickly got up, and her expression darkened. Are you insane? You told the cab driver to drive you right in. Why so indiscreet? Philip blew out a puff of smoke at Molly and smiled fearlessly. Why are you so scared? Do you think Jacob doesn't know about your relationship? Molly coughed and took a step back. She didn't want to get too close to him. Philip sat in a seat as if he were in his own home and crossed his legs. Then, he eyed her belly for a while before saying, Tell me. Why are you looking for me? You want to rekindle old flames? You suddenly missed me. Or you want me to deal with some dirty business? Molly's expression was cold, but her words blew him out of the water. This pup is yours. Philip nearly dropped his cigarette and coughed. What? Whose? Yours, Molly repeated coldly. Not Jacob's but yours. The shock on Philip's face slowly shifted into joy. You're not lying to me. Molly rolled her eyes, clearly irritated. You think I wanted to be yours. But fate had other plans. Hey! Philip scowled, not liking the tone. Watch it. Enough. I don't want to argue with you about this, Molly said, her expression calming down. She then explained everything to him. Jacob thought the pup was his, and he was planning to head to North Path to look for Cynthia after she gave birth. However, the moment he stepped into Pale Moon Pact territory, the agreement he signed earlier would come into effect. All his assets would be transferred to my name. Philip ground his cigarette out on the table after listening to everything with a deep frown. So, the reason you called me is so I can find a way to stop Jacob from going to the Pale Moon Pact? He asked cautiously. Not just that, Molly's voice was icily cold. I want you to go to the Pale Moon Pact and take her out permanently. As soon as Molly said that, there was only silence. It was so quiet that the tick of the clock could be heard. Philip's brow furrowed as he stared at Molly. Philip frowned as he stared at her. Are you crazy? You really want her dead? Molly slowly caressed her belly, but her gaze had no warmth at all. I'm not crazy. I'm simply trying to survive. Jacob is the alpha. He has more money than you can ever earn in your lifetime. If the pup loses him, you and I are both finished. She paused and then said, You're a rogue, Philip. Homeless, scraping by with petty theft and robbery. You'll never amount to anything. But if you listen to me and help me get rid of Cynthia and secure Jacob's wealth, once the pup's born, I'll have him inherit Jacob's status. You can also take advantage of this, and I can give you whatever you want. Under the dim light, Molly's face looked almost ghostly pale. There was no hesitation in her eyes, only ruthless calculation. Philip sat in silence. He looked out at the bright moon outside the window, extending his hand toward it before clenching it into a fist. It was obvious that he was tempted. Chapter 14. Back in the Pale Moon Pact, I had just finished my professional course. I was lounging in a chair on the balcony, enjoying the warmth coming from a small heater. In the past month, I had cut off all contact with Jacob. I had been spending my days studying and focusing on myself. I had never felt better than this. It was like I had been reborn. Just as I was about to eat something, my phone rang. Tessa's tone was just as teasing as usual. Mr. Romantic has been posting handwritten love letters every day and the internet is basically in tears. Have you seen it? Who? I haven't been paying attention, I said coldly with a frown. Jacob, of course. I couldn't understand why Jacob was still doing all of this. I had already shown clearly that I was done with him when I left. I didn't want to see him ever again. Then, Tessa changed the subject. However, the word is that Jacob's going to the Pale Moon Pact to find you in about a month. I froze when I was trying to find something, then laughed coldly. Even if he's here, I won't see him. Tessa sighed. Don't brush this off. Did you forget that contract 5 years ago? The moment he steps into Pale Moon Pact territory, all his assets will become yours. If you don't take him back and he loses everything, he can do anything after that. That was when I realized why she had really called. She wanted me to be careful that my heart was filled with warmth. I'll be careful. I didn't tell my parents about this, however. They were already preparing to hand over the Pact's affairs to me. I didn't want them to get worried again. The next evening, I drove my parents to a cliffside restaurant. We were joining a dinner to discuss a marriage alliance. What I didn't notice was that a black car had been quietly tailing us all the way. Once we arrived, I headed to the restroom to freshen up. When I was walking past the corridor, I stopped and looked out, distracted by the ocean view. In the next moment, an icy hand grabbed me by the shoulder and shoved me hard toward the edge of the cliff. Ah! The freezing sea water devoured me whole. I struggled as my life depended on it, but I started to lose my voice because of the coldness, and my consciousness started to fade. Just before the waves consumed me completely, a powerful hand yanked me out. When I came to, I found myself in the arms of a stranger that he was completely soaked, his gray suit clinging to his figure. However, it couldn't hide his handsome face. "Lady Cynthia, it's getting cold. Allow me to guide you to get changed." His words were gentle, his voice deep and magnetic. After he finished changing, I sat by the heater and watched the stranger. "You know me?" The man gave me a faint smile. "I know your father." I was stunned before saying, "Don't tell me you're the one my parents set me up for a date tonight." The man, Simon, nodded with a confident smile. "The dinner went smoothly tonight. After the dinner and when my parents wanted to leave, I made an excuse that I wanted to take a look around, so I could stay." Simon caught up with me and asked quietly, "You want to get the security camera footage?" I was surprised by how perceptive he was, but I didn't deny it. The staff pulled out the footage but frowned. Someone covered the camera in advance. We didn't get the footage of the push. His face. He's wearing a cap and mask. We didn't get anything clear. Send all the footage he is in to me. On the way home, I sent the footage to Tessa. "Can you help me look into this man?" An hour later, Tessa called. "Found him. This man is Philip, Molly's ex." Tessa then continued, "Philip is a rogue. He loafs around and has no money. The reason Molly used to be together with him is so she can get someone to do her dirty work." My eyes turned cold. "The pup is his." Tessa paused for a few seconds and nodded on the other side. "Pretty much. Philip came for you this time to kill you, so he can stop Jacob from ever going to the Pale Moon Pack." I leaned back slowly, deep in thought. "Since Molly wants me dead," I said as I chuckled coldly. "Then I'll die for them." "You're gonna fake your death." Tessa was taken aback. I nodded and calmly explained, "If I die, Jacob will definitely come to mourn me. At that time, all his assets will become mine. Once I'm dead, Molly will never send Philip after me again. Someone as determined as her is impossible to shake otherwise. Most importantly, as soon as Jacob is here, there's no way Molly will get a single cent that isn't hers." Killing 3 birds with 1 stone, Chapter 15. I asked Simon to hide the fact that he had pulled me from the waves. Then we worked with my parents and immediately issued an official obituary. It is with deep sorrow that we announce the passing of our beloved daughter Cynthia, who tragically drowned at 27 despite the best resuscitation efforts. She was a kind and beautiful woman who loved to live life. Her laughter and warmth will forever live in our memories. May she rest in peace. If there's another life, we hope to be mother and daughter again. The obituary caused a commotion the moment it was released. Molly, who received the news, paced the living room in excitement when she heard the news. She laughed like a madwoman, her eyes shone with glee. "Finally! I finally got rid of that obstacle." "Oh, Cynthia, don't blame me. If you want to blame something, blame it on the fact that you're in my way." Jacob was presiding over an important pack meeting when his phone vibrated. He tapped it open. It was an obituary his friend sent him. The next second, he froze. His eyes instantly turned red as his fingers trembled. The obituary read, "Cynthia Pale Moon. Drowned." "Impossible," he whispered, as if he wanted to deny reality itself. He suddenly stood up, his voice cracking. A dangerous and destructive aura radiated from him. "No. Cynthia can't be dead." The entire meeting room fell into silence. The elders exchanged a glance as his beta rushed to his side. The beta was stunned when he saw the picture in the obituary. He quickly cleaned the room. "Everyone, please leave. Now." Then he turned to Jacob. Alpha, my condolences. But please calm down. Jacob didn't hear a word as he stumbled toward the exit. However, everything went black as he lost control and shifted into his wolf. Alpha, the beta shouted. Quick! Tell the guards to hold him back. He needs treatment. 2 hours later, in a private room in the hospital, Jacob slowly opened his eyes. The first thing he did was to reach for his phone with his trembling hands. Then he reread the obituary. He lowered his head, rereading the words as his group on the phone faltered. I'm sorry, Cynthia, he choked as he sobbed with a broken heart. How could you leave me alone? I can't live without you. He turned to his assistant with his eyes red. Book me the earliest flight to Pale Moon Pack territory. I want to see her one last time. At this time, hurried footsteps from someone wearing heels echoed from outside the room. Molly burst in, but she froze. The once proud and cold Alpha was crying like a broken man who had lost everything in his world. Molly gritted her teeth and walked over, trying to hold him back. You want to go to the Pale Moon Pack? She was already dead. What was the point of you going there? You will lose all your wealth if you do. Before she could even finish, Jacob shook her hand off. Then, he glared at her. In the next second, he closed in, forcing Molly into a corner. Then, he grabbed her throat without hesitation. If you didn't stop me, I would have gone to see her. We would have made up she wouldn't have died. You killed her, Molly. You'd better pray the pup survives. Otherwise, I swear I'll make you wish you were dead. Molly collapsed to the ground in fear, trembling as she watched him walk away coldly. Tears rolled down her face as she mumbled, It's over, everything's over. She never imagined that he would still go to Pale Moon Pack's territory despite knowing it would mean giving up all his wealth. The next afternoon, my funeral started. The sky was gray, and it was drizzling down. My parents were standing at the front, holding my portrait with solemn expressions. When Jacob arrived, he looked like he had lost parts of himself. He was unshaven, his suit wrinkled, his eyes were all red, and he could barely stand as he stared at my portrait. I'm sorry, Cynthia. I'm too late, he said as he slapped himself hard. He didn't pull his strength back. I never should have indulged Molly. I should have come to you sooner. You were doted on growing up. How much pain did you suffer when you drowned? I can't even imagine. Cynthia, come back, all right? Let me die in your place. He was like a madman. No one could stop him. The guests looked around in shock. They finally understood that the rumors were all wrong. That I and the rumors, they said that Jacob was cold and unfaithful toward Cynthia. But in truth, he had always loved Cynthia. My parents didn't stop him. They simply stood at the side and watched in silence. Among the crowd, I stood quietly in the shadows. I dressed in black, holding a black umbrella. A black mask hid my face. I didn't cry. I simply watched the man kneeling before my grave, with cold eyes. Simon stood beside me with an umbrella. He noticed that I had been staring at Jacob. Then, he asked softly, Do you feel sorry for him? I frowned slightly, but my voice was calm and clear. I don't feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for myself. I couldn't sleep the night I received Molly's voice message. Meanwhile, he slept soundly beside her. The blue fireworks on our 5th mate bond anniversary were simply leftovers that Molly had rejected. He gave them to me like a handout. When I was hospitalized after the car accident, he let Molly move into our home and sleep in our bed. I had no tears in my eyes, but I was sadder than any weeping could show. So, wasn't the person I should feel sorry for the most myself? Chapter 16. 1 week later, my personal assistant Mia returned to Jacob's villa in the Black Flame Pack. She looked at the Alpha before her. He had lost 30 pounds. She almost couldn't recognize the once prideful Jacob. However, she was simply surprised for a moment before she regained her composure and professionalism. Alpha, as per Lady Cynthia's final wishes, she had left this villa in my care. The new owner has signed the transfer papers today. Please vacate the premises. Before she could finish, Jacob suddenly raised his head with a bitter smile on his face. Vacate? Of course Cynthia's dead. There's no scent of her in this place. There's no point in my staying here. And then, he stumbled toward the exit. Mia had no choice but to follow close behind. Mia knew that ever since my death, Jacob had been drinking heavily and didn't sleep at all. During his worst moment, he had even attempted to take his own life. Sure enough, before Jacob could even exit through the garden, he stumbled forward and collapsed. Mia quickly rushed him to the hospital. She couldn't hold back anymore and called a number. 2 hours later, a group of people strode into the hospital. Leading them was none other than Donovan, the former alpha of the Black Flame Pack, and Jacob's father. Donovan pushed open the door leading into the private room, and his eyes fell on the pale, gaunt figure. Anger simmered in his eyes. The healer was trying to inject a sedative into him, but Jacob quickly yanked the 4-needle out and simply let blood stream down his pale hand. The healer made another attempt, but Jacob stopped him and simply let the blood flow out of his vein. Donovan's eyes turned cold, and he grabbed his cane, slamming it down on Jacob's leg. Do you even know what you're doing, you fool? Jacob stirred at the familiar voice, life slowly returning to his eyes, but when he opened his mouth, his voice was like a whisper. Father, let me go find Cynthia. She left this world alone. It's too lonely. We promised each other we'd return to the end of the forest together. Could you ask her parents if we could be buried side by side? Donovan's face darkened, and the aura of an alpha filled the room. Then, he grabbed Jacob by the collar and dragged him to the sink. He then splashed cold water over his head. Look at yourself. You're the alpha of the Black Flame Pack. You let your emotions shatter you like this. Jacob stared blankly at his reflection in the mirror. The once prideful werewolf had his face stained in a pale gray, his eyes hollowed, like a wanderer who had lost himself. He remembered it so clearly. 5 years ago, beneath the moon goddess tree, he and Cynthia had vowed eternal loyalty to each other, but in the comfort of a peaceful life, his heart had begun to stray. Watching other werewolves chase after thrill and temptation, he'd grown restless. Bored, even, and so, while maintaining the mating bond with Cynthia, he'd begun flirting with Molly. In the end, the web of lies collapsed. Cynthia left heartbroken, returning alone to the Pale Moon Pack. Had he not betrayed her, she wouldn't have been alone when she drowned. I ruined everything, he murmured and slapped himself hard. Donovan was silent for a long time before finally sighing that he was once the perfect alpha in everyone's eyes. But now, he was obsessed with love and even wanted to die for it. Clean Jacob up, Donovan ordered coldly. I won't see him die here like some dead wolf. Half an hour later, Jacob sat before his father, properly cleaned up. It was as if he were once again the young man who first received his pack's inheritance. However, the light in his eyes was extinguished. Father. Without a word, Donovan slammed a thick stack of documents down in front of him. On top of the stack of documents was a photo of Jacob and Molly's bonding ceremony. You betrayed your mate bond. You violated your oath to the moon goddess. I am too ashamed to see Cynthia's parents after she passed away. Cynthia's parents refused to see you again. All of your resources, holdings, and wealth will be transferred to them as restitution. He tossed a few more documents onto the table, pack communication records filled with harsh criticism and public condemnation. Alpha of the Black Flame Pack, and this is what the wolves are calling you now. A hypocrite. Laughable. The pack code is very clear. Anyone who violates a moon goddess oath is barred from council affairs or leadership roles for 5 years. Alpha or not, there are no exceptions. Jacob lowered his eyes. His father's message couldn't be clearer. He was being permanently stripped of his alpha title. In a pack like Black Flame, where power shifted as swiftly as the wind, 5 years was long enough to lose everything. But deep down, he knew, even if he could reclaim it all, what would be the point? Cynthia was gone. Gone forever. I understand, Father. His voice was low, raspy, but there was a quiet strength in it. Donovan shook his head. Disappointed, but no longer angry. He turned and walked out of the hospital room, leaving behind only one final, cold declaration: this is the price of your betrayal. And the sin you must atone for. Chapter 17. Before losing all his influence within the pack as Alpha, the last thing Jacob did was to conduct a thorough investigation into my death. When he learned that Philip was connected to my death, he couldn't control his rage. He personally led a team and tore Philip apart. When Molly heard the news, she sat alone in the living room. Her mind was in complete chaos. They hadn't traced anything back to her yet, but she knew it was only a matter of time before she was exposed. She touched her belly. After giving it some thought, she decided to stay with Jacob. Her relationship with Jacob was already fully known by the entire pack. She was still carrying a pup in her belly. As long as she was willing to endure the humiliation and stay with Jacob for 5 years, once his period of punishment had ended, he would still have the chance to reclaim his leadership of the Black Flame pack. When that time came, she could still have everything. A few months later, Molly was due for her delivery. That day, Molly delivered her pup in the pack's hospital. Jacob only showed up to visit for a moment. He didn't even look at the pup's face before walking away. Molly stared at his distant figure, eyes welling up with tears. She called out to him, "Aren't you going to see your pup, Jacob?" Jacob's footsteps paused for a split second. He didn't turn around and simply quickened his pace. Somehow, someone spread the story, and it got out. Within days, word spread that Jacob didn't even want to look at his own pup. But Molly didn't care. She had safely given birth to a healthy male pup. Everyone thought he was Jacob's son. He would have the same inheritance rights as Jacob within the Black Flame pack. Now that Cynthia was dead, Jacob had also stopped trying to kick her out. So what if Jacob had no love for her? Everyone had already assumed she was Jacob's new mate. 20 days later, Molly carefully prepared the pup's 1-month celebration. That night, she pleaded and begged Jacob. "Can you please attend Noah's 1-month celebration? If you don't come, his position within the pack would become very awkward." Jacob originally wanted to ignore her, but the pup was innocent after all. "Fine," he said. 10 days later, Noah's 1-month celebration took place as scheduled. Molly had also spread the word that the former Alpha, Jacob, would attend in person. News of this drew many guests to the celebration. While everyone knew Jacob had been stripped of power for 5 years by his own father and previous Alpha Donovan, Jacob's own abilities were still not to be underestimated. Molly was wearing a snow-white gown with a smug smile on her face. She confidently mingled with the guests, as if she were really the Luna. But as Jacob entered the banquet hall and heard her discussing pack affairs loudly and publicly, his expression immediately darkened. He stepped forward and coldly rebuked her in front of everyone. "Know your place. You'll never be Luna and have no right to speak about pack matters openly." Molly froze as her face became pale, but she still forced a smile as she said, "It's all for our pup. Don't be upset, the banquet is about to start." She spoke meekly, cajoled him gently. Only then did Jacob reluctantly take his seat. Meanwhile, inside a black car outside the first floor of the hotel, Tessa sat in the car, looking at the brightly lit banquet hall with a smirk. She then called a number. "Everything's ready, Cynthia. I've already prepared the documents. Soon, someone will serve Jacob a very special dish." Normally, tracing Noah's lineage by getting his blood would be something quite difficult to achieve. However, Molly had been too cold and dismissive toward the house staff. When Tessa approached them, they had already agreed to take a sample of Noah's blood before she even tried to persuade them, so that they could finally vent their resentment. Inside the banquet hall, 5 waiters began to serve the dishes one by one. Then, a waitress wearing a mask carried a silver dish covered by a dome and slowly approached Jacob. She stopped next to Jacob and lifted the dome. There was no food in the fish. Only 4 neatly arranged documents. The sight immediately drew the attention of nearby guests. "What's that? I have a feeling something big is going to happen again." Molly's heart skipped a beat, and she immediately reached out, wanting to snatch the documents. However, Jacob was much faster and grabbed the top one. It was the report of his medical checkup. Name, Jacob, race, werewolf, alpha, diagnosis, congenital infertility. Jacob's eyes narrowed, and his fingers slightly trembled. He quickly picked up the second document, interpretation of results. According to the bloodline analysis, the alleged father, Jacob, can be excluded as the biological father of the tested pup, Noah. The third one was also a paternity test, interpretation of results. According to the bloodline analysis, the alleged father, Philip, is the biological father of the tested pup, Noah. The fourth file included photos of Philip and Molly meeting in secret, either in the forest or the canyons, and even in Black Flame Pack's territory. Jacob raised his eyes slowly and looked at Molly, murderous intent burning in his eyes. "Noah's not my pup." Molly's face turned pale as she forced herself to calm down and argue, "This is slander. Someone's trying to harm me. He's your pup. You can't believe these fake reports. These must have been prepared by Cynthia's original subordinates to attack you." "That's right. It has to be them." Molly grabbed Jacob's arm, trying to persuade him, but he simply pulled away. Jacob called the healer who had done the medical exam for him and Cynthia in the past. "Mr. Jacob, your Luna is the one who asked me to keep it a secret and begged me to change your diagnosis into hers. She said that if this got out, it would ruin your reputation and status in the pack. She was willing to shoulder it all for your sake. She really loved you very much." Every word shook him to the core. Jacob was silent for a while before raising his head back and laughing, but his laughter was filled with despair. Then, he slowly bowed his head, clutching the documents tightly as tears began to fall onto the pages. His beloved Cynthia had once loved him with everything she had, and what did he do? He personally pushed her into the endless abyss. Molly watched Jacob go mad and wanted to slip away. Suddenly, he grabbed Molly by her hair and slammed her into the wall. "Molly!" He growled deeply, like the snarl from a beast from hell. "Was it fun toying with me? You seduced me. You stopped me from seeing her at the Pale Moon Pack. You killed her. I should personally kill you so that you can apologize to Molly directly." With every sentence he said, he would slam Molly's head against the wall. Molly lifted her head, and there was already blood from her forehead. Blood rolled down her cheeks horrifyingly. Suddenly, she broke free with newfound strength from nowhere and roared, "It's all your fault. If it wasn't because you can't make me carry a pup, I wouldn't have turned to Philip. Does it matter if the child is yours? Can't we just live on like this? What was so great about Cynthia? She was already gone, so why still make such a mess out of everything? She deserved to die for wanting to ruin me. Philip should have done more instead of just pushing her." Molly abruptly stopped talking, her words cutting off mid-sentence. She realized she had just let a huge secret slip. Chapter 18. Jacob's gaze turned dark as he fought to contain his anger, as he locked his eyes on Molly. "You're the one who sent Philip to kill Cynthia." Molly frantically shook her head as she shuddered. She still tried to deny it as she said, "I didn't." Bang! Before she could even finish, Jacob had already thrown a punch, and his fist crashed into her face. The punch was enough to immediately rush Molly's face as blood trickled down from the corner of her mouth. Then came a second punch. And then a third. Jacob was like a man gone mad, pouring all his guilt, regret, and sorrow into his punches on Molly. In just minutes, Molly was almost unconscious as she lay on the ground. But Jacob didn't stop punching. The entire banquet hall was dead silent as all the werewolves stared in horror as Jacob lost control. No one dared to stop him. Only until the guards and healers came did Jacob finally stop his bloodied hands. By the time Molly was taken away, she was already covered in blood. Her sciatic nerves were damaged, meaning she was crippled for the rest of her life. The power from an alpha had also tainted her wounds, stopping her from regenerating from her wounds. The once lively 1-month celebration ended with only a pup's sob echoing through the hall. 3 days later, the Pale Moon Pack held a meeting. I appeared under a new identity that I cropped my hair short with my face hidden behind a black mask, revealing only a pair of icy eyes. No one realized I was Jacob's first mate, returning from the land of the dead. That I had just sat down when I was back in my office when I received Tessa's call. Evil begets evil, Cynthia, Tessa said in a cheerful tone. Molly's nerves are ruined, and she's paralyzed. She also can't regenerate. She's going to live the rest of her life in a wheelchair. My hand paused, and then I asked with a calm voice, and Jacob? Will he be arrested for assault? No, Tessa sighed. Black Flame Pack's previous alpha, Donovan, will never allow his descendants to have such a stain. He asked the pack's highest neutral council to arbitrate, and settled it quietly with Molly's family by paying them $3 million. However, Jacob had been exiled from the Black Flame Pack. He's also not allowed to step into any territory that is connected to the pack. I heard that he has lost his mind. He won't eat or drink, and the only thing he does the entire day is sketch your portraits. But the pup Noah, he suffers the most from this. His father's gone, and his mother is disabled. I sighed. Everything's finally over. There was a long silence from the other side, and Tessa finally asked with a sob, You cleared everything out so ruthlessly, but aren't you hurting yourself too? Tessa knew more than anyone just how much pain it would take to completely rip herself out from her love of 7 years. That we talked for a long while before ending the call. Then, there was a knock on the door. A tall, lean werewolf stepped inside. His features were sharp and refined, silver hair tied back with a black ribbon. He carried a calm, elegant presence, but beneath it was a quiet, commanding power. It was Simon. A pure-blood alpha from the northern lineage, the one who had helped me fake my death. Now, he was my business partner. He placed a delicately wrapped blueberry pie on my desk and smiled, a limited supply of blueberry pie that was just delivered. I heard you like these. I froze for a moment. Jacob used to bring me blueberry pies when he was trying to win me over. I looked up at Simon. He was handsome, dignified, with a noble air and gentle patience in his eyes. Simon, I just ended a 7-year relationship. It's tiring for me to just maintain a smile. I want to give myself 2 months to calm down. I don't want to be in a relationship with you right now. It's not fair for you. My voice was clear, and it sounded especially firm in the quietness of my office. Simon smiled softly as I could see my own reflection in his golden eyes. No rush, Cynthia. I have time. You deserve love, and you deserve to be waited on. I looked at his steady eyes and gently nodded, taking a bite of the pie. The sweetness reached the depth of my heart. 2 years later, in the Pale Moon Pack's church, white doves flew above as the bell echoed. I was wearing a custom-made snow-white gown, a bouquet of flowers in my hands. My slightly red eyes filled with tears. Simon stood in a tailored suit, silver hair draping, as he said with a low voice, Cynthia, no, my Luna. You probably didn't know this, but 3 years ago, I was a firm believer in never marrying. But after I saw your photo on your mother's phone, I knew if I were to mate bond with someone, it could only be you. The night you agreed to be with me, I was so happy I couldn't sleep. And when you said yes to my proposal, I thanked the moon goddess for giving me such a beautiful fate. Tears of joy welled in my eyes. Thank the moon goddess. 10 years later, Jacob once again stepped into Pale Moon Pack territory on business. He checked into the Central Hotel. When it was time for dinner, he saw a familiar figure from afar the moment he stepped into the restaurant. Cynthia was sitting there with Simon and a 9-year-old girl. The girl looked just like Cynthia, especially when she smiled. she was crossing her arms, pouting at her parents. Daddy, you always side with Mommy. You always peel fruit for her and wait for her to finish before me. It's my birthday today, can't I have the first bite just this once? I smiled softly, reaching for a fruit and wanting to peel it for her, but Simon stopped me. He gently patted our daughter's head. I'm not siding with Mommy, sweetheart. It's because I care. Mommy's fingers are so pretty. If she hurts her fingers when peeling fruits, the moon goddess will punish me for not cherishing her. Jacob stood frozen in place, watching the scene unfold, a peaceful moment of domestic happiness. The woman who had once been his Luna now had a new family. A new life. A new joy. But he didn't interrupt. He simply turned around and walked away. And the moment he stepped out of the restaurant, the tears finally fell, silently and uncontrollably. Cynthia, knowing you're still alive, that's enough for me. I'm sorry. If there's a next life, please, give me one more chance. Let me love you all over again. Next time, he would never let her go again.